Part 3. The Human Way of War. The Marauder command ship hung in space like a diseased moon. It was 5 times larger than any human vessel, covered in mismatched armor plates and salvaged weapons. The Marauders had built it from the wreckage of 100 battles. Captain Daewon watched it on his display as the 7 human ships closed in. The Council fleet had stopped fighting to watch. They wanted to see if the small human vessels would be crushed. "It sees us coming," Lieutenant Tae Yang reported, charging weapons and reinforcing shields. "Good," Daewon replied. "It's focused on us, that's what we want." The Marauder command ship opened fire with everything it had. Energy beams, missiles, and kinetic weapons filled the space between them. It looked like a wall of death that nothing could pass through, but the human ships split apart, each one moving independently. They wove through the incoming fire like dancers in a deadly ballet. Their point defense systems picked off missiles. Their armor absorbed glancing hits, and they kept coming. The Indomitable took a direct hit from a plasma cannon. The shields flared and died. Alarms blared across the bridge. "Shield generators offline," Tae Yang called out. "Hull breach on deck 3. Seal it," Daewon ordered. "Continue approach. Ready the package." The other human ships moved to cover the Indomitable. The Resolute positioned itself between Daewon's ship and the command vessel, absorbing fire meant for the damaged flagship. The Defiant and Valiant launched waves of missiles, forcing the Marauder to split its attention. On the bridge, Daewon counted down the distance. 3,000 meters, 2,000, 1,000. "Now," he said quietly. The Indomitable fired a single large projectile. It moved slower than the railgun rounds, almost lazily by weapons standards. The Marauder sensors barely registered it as a threat. Their shields let it pass through without much resistance. The projectile embedded itself in the command ship's hull and detonated. It was nuclear. The explosion looked like a small sun being born. The electromagnetic pulse from the blast washed over every ship in the area, disrupting sensors and communications. The Marauder command ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. Every species in the galaxy had banned nuclear weapons in space combat 3,000 years ago. They were too dangerous, too destructive, too primitive. Humanity had never signed that treaty. The shockwave from the explosion disabled nearby Marauder ships. Their systems went dark, their weapons offline. The rest of the Marauder fleet, seeing their command structure destroyed and their coordination shattered, broke and ran. The human ships regrouped, their hulls scorched but intact. Around them, the Council fleet sat in stunned silence. On the Veranthi flagship, Vrexthal stared at the tactical display. His officers were speechless. Finally, someone spoke. "What are humans?" an officer whispered. Vrexthal had no answer. The fleet limped back to Nexus Station over the next 2 days. The mighty Council warships came home damaged and bleeding. Veranthi dreadnoughts had collapsed shield generators. Quallen cruisers bore hull breaches. Theron carriers trailed debris and empty fighter bays. Behind them, 7 human ships arrived in perfect formation, barely scratched. The Council called an emergency session the moment they docked. When Ambassador Jiwoo entered the chamber this time, there was no laughter. The representatives watched her with expressions that ranged from respect to fear. Vrexthal spoke first, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Humanity deployed nuclear weapons in void combat. Such weapons have been banned by Council law for 3,000 years. You violated the most sacred rules of civilized warfare." Jiwoo looked at him calmly. "We never signed that treaty. We've been Council members for 15 years. That law was written 3,000 years ago. It doesn't apply to us, and we made no promise to follow it." The chamber erupted. Species shouted in dozens of languages. Mariloth, the Quallen representative, raised his voice above the chaos. "You brought weapons of mass destruction into a Council operation. The radiation alone could have..." "Could have what?" Jiwoo interrupted. "Harmed planets? There were no planets nearby. Endangered civilians. We were in deep space. The radiation dissipated in minutes. We used nuclear weapons precisely against military targets in the middle of nowhere." She looked around the chamber. "Your outrage isn't about safety. It's about the fact that we were effective. It's about the fact that 7 small ships did what 200 large ones could not. The Theron representative Krath silenced the room with a deep growl. He was old, covered in scars from 100 battles. The weapons matter less than this question, he said slowly. How did 7 ships accomplish what 200 could not? That is what we must understand. Jiwoo activated a holographic display showing battle statistics. The Council fleet is impressive, powerful, but predictable. You advance in formation. You rely on shields and energy weapons. You've fought the same way for so long that you've forgotten how to adapt. She changed the display to show human ships in action. Humanity never had overwhelming force. On Earth, we fought each other for thousands of years. We learned to win through tactics, innovation, and adaptation. We learned to do whatever was necessary to survive. Your ships move like fighters, Krath observed, not like warships. Because we built them that way, a new voice said. Captain Daewon had been invited to testify. He stood at the entrance to the chamber, still wearing his combat uniform. Burns marked his sleeves from the battle. Human ships are designed for high acceleration, he explained. Our crews train in high gravity. We can outturn anything the Marauders field. We can outturn most Council ships too. He walked to the center of the chamber. The Council builds ships to intimidate. We build ships to win. Every system is optimized for combat. No wasted space. No decorative panels. Just weapons, engines, and armor. Vrextal clicked his mandibles. You fight like you have nothing to lose. We fight like we remember what losing means, Daewon corrected. Your civilizations have been in space for thousands of years. You've grown comfortable with your power. Humanity clawed our way off one planet and nearly destroyed ourselves doing it. We know what extinction looks like. We've faced it many times. He gestured to the display. When we build warships, we build them to win. Not to look impressive. Not to parade in formation. To win. Because on Earth, if you lost a battle, your people died. Your cities burned. Your civilization ended. The chamber was silent. These ancient species had forgotten what that kind of desperation felt like. Admiral Park's hologram appeared in the center of the room. The Council has a problem. The Marauders are one threat, but there will be others. Your fleets are powerful but rigid. You fight the way you've always fought. Humanity offers a solution. What solution? Mariloth asked. Integrated task forces, Park said. Combine Council resources with human tactics. Your ships provide the firepower and defense. We provide the flexibility and innovation. The chamber exploded in protest. The idea of Council vessels taking orders from humans was unthinkable. But then a new voice spoke. Ambassador Talvera of the Kelthran Collective, a species that had remained neutral for centuries. I watched the battle recordings, she said quietly. The humans didn't just fight effectively, they saved Council lives. When Varanthi's shields failed, human vessels moved to intercept attackers. When Theron fighters were overwhelmed, human point defense provided cover. She looked around the chamber. Humanity could have let us be humiliated. They could have watched us die and claimed victory alone. Instead, they fought as if our lives mattered as much as theirs. Perhaps that is the real difference between them and us. The vote was called. The Council was divided. Some saw opportunity in human expertise. Others feared giving power to such a young, aggressive species. But the vote passed. Narrowly, but it passed. Humanity would be granted full military partnership. Human vessels would be integrated into Council defense fleets, and human tactical doctrine would be studied by all Council forces. As the chamber emptied, Rexthal approached Jiwoo privately. His mandibles clicked softly, a sign of serious thought. You have proven yourselves formidable, Ambassador, but I wonder if you understand what you have done. Jiwoo met his alien eyes. We've shown the Council that humanity deserves respect. You have shown the Council that humanity is dangerous, Vrexthal corrected. Some will see you as valuable allies. Others will see you as threats. You have made your species impossible to ignore. but whether that is good or bad remains to be seen. He turned and walked away, leaving Jiwoo alone with his words. She looked out the chamber window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human shipyards were already building more vessels. Humanity had proven itself in battle, but that was just the beginning. The real test would be what came next. Part 4. The Council's Reckoning. 6 months passed after the Marauder battle. The galaxy changed in that time, slowly but surely. Human officers now served aboard Council vessels, teaching tactics and strategy. Council engineers studied human ship designs. And in Earth's orbital shipyard, something new was being built. Captain Day 1 received the summons 3 weeks before the scheduled joint military exercise. Admiral Park wanted to see him in person, not through a hologram. That was unusual enough to make him curious. He took a shuttle from the Indomitable to the construction yards orbiting Mars. As he approached, his breath caught in his throat. A massive vessel hung in the construction cradle, nearly complete. It was 2 kilometers long, sleek and aggressive in design. It combined Council technology with human engineering in ways that should not have been possible. Admiral Park met him at the docking bay. She looked tired but satisfied. "Is that what I think it is?" Day 1 asked. "The Terra's Wrath," Park confirmed. "Our first true battleship. The Council gave us access to their shield technology and power systems. We integrated them with our weapons and tactical systems. They walked through the ship together. Day 1 saw Varanthi energy shield generators protecting human railgun batteries, Quallen power cores feeding weapon systems designed on Earth, Theron armor plating on a hull built for maneuverability. It's not just bigger," Park explained. "It's better. We took the best of what the Council had to offer and combined it with human innovation." "How many did we build?" Day 1 asked. Park smiled. 12. "This is just the first one to be completed. The others will be ready within a month." The joint military exercise was scheduled in the Zareth system, a strategically important location near Council core space. All major powers sent their fleets. The Varanthi brought 30 dreadnoughts. The Quallen sent 40 cruisers. The Theron deployed 15 carriers, and humanity brought 22 ships. 7 were the original vessels from the Marauder battle. 15 were new cruisers built to similar designs. But it was the Terra's Wrath that drew every eye. The massive battleship emerged from jump space like a predator entering a hunting ground. Even the Varanthi dreadnoughts looked small beside it. Every line of its hull suggested purpose. Every weapon mount promised death. On his flagship, Vrexthal watched the human battleship with a mixture of respect and concern. "They built this in 6 months?" he asked his tactical officer. "They built 12 of them," the officer replied. "This is just the one they sent here." Vrexthal's mandibles clicked rapidly. The Council had helped humanity, given them technology and resources. Perhaps they had helped too much. The exercise began as a simple coordination drill. Multiple fleets responding to simulated threats, practicing communication and combined tactics. Admiral Park had other plans. "All human vessels, pattern Omega," she ordered, from the Terra's Wrath. "Show them what we've learned from working together." The human ships coordinated with Council vessels in ways that impressed even the skeptical observers. Human cruisers used Varanthi dreadnoughts as mobile fortresses, darting out to strike and then retreating behind the larger ship's shields. Quallen cruisers received targeting data from human sensor networks, allowing them to phase into perfect attack positions. Their effectiveness tripled. Theron fighters got real-time tactical updates from human command ships. They stopped flying in rigid formations and started using flexible tactics. Their survival rate doubled. It was not just combined arms. It was cooperation at a level the Council had never achieved. Then the simulation became real. Sensors detected a massive gravity distortion at the edge of the system. Something was coming through jump space, something big. "All ships, battle stations," Park ordered calmly. "This is not a drill." The vessel that emerged was unlike anything in Council records. It looked organic, like a living creature made of metal and flesh. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across its surface. It was enormous, larger than a Varanthi dreadnought. It was followed by dozens more. The alien vessels broadcast a message. Council translators struggled with the language, but the intent was clear. They were claiming this system. They were claiming everything in it. "First contact," Day 1 said quietly from the Indomitable. "And they're not friendly." The Varanthi moved to intercept following standard first contact protocols. The newcomers responded with weapons fire. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Council had experienced. These aliens used living weapons, organic projectiles that burrowed through shields, biological viruses that corrupted ship systems, swarm creatures that moved through space like schools of predatory fish. A Varanthi dreadnought fired its plasma cannons. The alien ship absorbed the energy, its organic hull adapting and healing. The Quallen tried their molecular disruptors. The living ships regenerated faster than they could be destroyed. The Council fleet began to fall back. These enemies did not fight by the rules of galactic warfare, but humanity had never cared about rules. All ships, Combat Protocol 0, Admiral Park ordered. We're not fighting a navy. We're fighting an ecosystem. Adjust tactics. The Terra's Wrath engaged the largest alien vessel. Instead of energy weapons, it used incendiary warheads designed for vacuum combat. Fire bloomed in space, and the organic ship screamed on frequencies that hurt to hear. The human cruisers deployed radiological weapons, not nuclear explosions but radiation bombs that poisoned organic matter. The alien ships tried to adapt, but their biology could not evolve fast enough. When the swarm creatures attacked, human point defense filled space with depleted uranium. Nothing living could survive passage through that metal storm. On the Indomitable, Lieutenant Tae Yang made a critical observation. Captain, their vessels are networked. Biological neural connections. If we can disrupt the central node, their command ship acts as a brain, Daewon finished. Admiral requesting permission for strike mission. Granted, Park replied. End this. The Indomitable and 3 sister ships broke formation. They accelerated toward the largest alien vessel, the one that coordinated all the others. The alien defenses swarmed them. Living weapons and creatures attacked from all sides. But the 4 human ships worked together, their point defense systems creating overlapping fields of fire. They closed on the command ship, and then they did something insane. They rammed it, at full acceleration using their kinetic energy as a weapon. The alien shields were designed for energy attacks. They could not handle the pure physical force of 4 ships moving at combat speed. The Indomitable broke through the shields, and Daewon gave the final order. Full nuclear spread. Fire everything. Dozens of atomic warheads detonated inside the alien vessel's defenses. The command ship convulsed. Its bioluminescence flickered and died. Across the battlefield, the other alien vessels faltered as their coordination network collapsed. The Council fleet, seeing the opening, struck hard. Within minutes, the surviving alien vessels retreated back into jump space. Silence fell over the system. The Indomitable drifted, her hull breached in a dozen places, engines barely functional. But she had survived. On the Varanthi flagship, Vrexthal opened a channel to Admiral Park. I owe your species an apology, Admiral. When humanity first joined the Council, we saw primitive ships and assumed primitive minds. We were wrong. Park's response was measured but firm. You saw what you expected to see, Ambassador. You assumed advancement meant abandoning the old ways. Humanity learned differently. We kept our primitive weapons and made them better. We kept the lessons from our bloody history and used them to face new challenges. She paused. The Council survives because of diversity. Different species bring different strengths. Humanity's strength is that we never forgot how to fight like our existence depends on it, because for most of our history it did. The battle changed everything. In the weeks that followed, Council military doctrine underwent its first major revision in centuries. Human tactical officers were assigned to every major fleet. Shipyards began producing hybrid vessels. More importantly, humanity was no longer seen as the newcomers who needed protection. They were recognized as equals. In warfare, perhaps more than equals, but not everyone was happy about it. In secret chambers, some council members whispered about the danger of humanity. They had given these aggressive primates technology and resources. Now humanity had weapons that could challenge any species in the galaxy. Some suggested that humanity should be limited, controlled, perhaps even contained. Others argued that humanity was exactly what the Council needed. The galaxy was changing. New threats were emerging. Old tactics were failing. Humanity had proven they could adapt, innovate, and win. The question was whether the Council would embrace that or fear it. Part 2. The First Engagement. The combined fleet arrived at the disputed territory 3 days later. 200 warships filled the space around a dying red star. The Varanthi dreadnoughts formed the front line, their massive hulls blocking out the starlight. Behind them, the Quallen cruisers shimmered in and out of normal space. The Theran carriers hung back, ready to release their swarms of fighters. At the rear of the formation, 7 small human ships maintained position. They were so tiny compared to the alien vessels that some species had trouble seeing them on their sensors. Captain Day-Wan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the tactical display. The Marauder fleet was already here, waiting among the asteroid belt. His sensors counted nearly 500 ships, all smaller than even the human vessels. "They're not running," Lieutenant Tae Yang observed. "They're waiting for us." "It's a trap," Day-One said simply. "But the Council doesn't see it." He was right. Vrexthal gave the order to advance, confident in his overwhelming force. The Varanthi dreadnoughts moved forward in perfect formation, their shields overlapping to create an impenetrable wall of energy. The Marauders scattered like insects before a storm. Their small ships darted between asteroids, firing crude missiles and energy bolts. The attack splashed harmlessly against the Varanthi shields. Is this the threat they feared? Vrexthal clicked with amusement. These raiders are nothing. Advance and destroy them. The Qualan cruisers phased into position, appearing behind clusters of Marauder ships and firing their molecular disruptors. Marauder vessels came apart at the molecular level, their hulls simply dissolving. The Theron carriers released their fighters, and space filled with thousands of small craft. For 10 minutes, the battle seemed completely one-sided. The Marauders were being slaughtered. They ran, they hid, they died. Then the trap sprung. A second Marauder fleet emerged from behind a large asteroid, twice the size of the first. These ships were different, better armed and coordinated. They had been studying the Council tactics, learning and adapting. The new fleet hit the Varanthi formation from the side. They didn't try to break through the shields with weapons. Instead, they rammed them with old cargo ships packed with explosives. The suicide attacks overwhelmed the shield generators, and gaps appeared in the defensive wall. More Marauders poured through the gaps. They attacked the joints between ships where the shields met. The Varanthi formation, so perfect moments before, began to break apart. The Qualan cruisers found themselves in trouble next. The Marauders had brought broad-spectrum jammers, crude devices that disrupted the phasing frequency. Qualan ships materialized in the middle of Marauder formations and were torn apart before they could escape. The Theran fighters faced the worst situation. For every fighter they destroyed, 3 more Marauders appeared. The raiders were using pure numbers to overwhelm skill and training. On the Varanthi flagship, Vrexthal watched his perfect battle plan collapse. His mandibles clicked in frustration and worry. "All reserves advance," he ordered. "We cannot let these raiders defeat us." But the Marauders had prepared for this too. They had studied Council warfare for months. They knew exactly how the great powers fought, and they had found every weakness. A Varanthi dreadnought took critical damage to its shield generators. Without shields, its hull was vulnerable. Marauder ships swarmed it like sharks smelling blood. The massive warship tried to retreat, but it was too slow. Aboard the Indomitable, Day-Wan watched the battle with calm analysis. Tae Yang stood beside him, shaking his head. "The Council is losing," the young lieutenant said. "The Marauders adapted to their tactics." "Both sides are predictable," Day-Wan replied. "The Council relies on overwhelming force. The Marauders rely on numbers and aggression. Neither side knows how to be flexible." A message came from Admiral Park on the Resolute. "Captain Kim analysis. The Varanthi will break formation in 10 minutes, Day-Wan reported. "They'll call retreat in 15. The Marauders will claim victory and become bolder. This will only make the problem worse." "Agreed," Park said. "Stand by. I'm requesting permission to engage." Day-Wan felt a surge of anticipation. Finally. On the Council command channel, Ambassador Jiwoo's voice cut through the chaos. "Varanthi flagship, this is Ambassador Lee. Request permission for human fleet to engage the enemy." There was a pause filled with weapons fire and explosions. Then Vrexthal's voice came back, tight with barely controlled panic. "You have 7 ships, human. We have 200. If we cannot win, what makes you think? Permission granted or denied?" Jiwoo interrupted coldly. Vrexthal's pride fought with desperation. Another dreadnought was taking critical damage. His formation was collapsing. Finally, he made his choice. "Granted, but do not blame us when your people die." "Understood," Jiwoo replied. Admiral Park's voice came across all human vessels instantly. "All ships engage pattern Delta 7. Show them what Earth taught us." The 7 human ships surged forward, but not toward the main battle. They moved in a wide arc around the fighting. accelerating to speeds that made the alien sensors flag them as missiles. The Marauders barely noticed them. 7 tiny ships against hundreds. It would be like swatting insects. They were about to learn why Earth's insects had survived for hundreds of millions of years. The Indomitable led the formation, Day One standing calmly on the bridge as they entered weapons range. His crew worked with quiet efficiency. No shouting, no panic, just professionals doing their jobs. Lieutenant Choi, weapons free, Day One ordered. Railguns charged, missiles ready, point defense online, Tae Yang confirmed. Acquiring targets. The Indomitable opened fire, not with flashy energy beams like the Council ships used, but with solid tungsten rods accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The railgun rounds were primitive by galactic standards, just metal moving very fast, but they were devastatingly effective. The first salvo hit a Marauder heavy cruiser. The shields absorbed the impact, but the kinetic energy physically knocked the ship sideways, its helm compensators overloaded trying to correct. Before it recovered, the Indomitable fired again, and again, and again. The Marauder shields weren't designed for this kind of punishment. They collapsed under the repeated hammering. The fourth salvo punched through the hull, and the ship broke apart. All of this happened in 8 seconds. On the Varanthi flagship, officers stared at their displays in shock. "How are they firing so rapidly?" someone asked. "Energy weapons need time to recharge." "They're not energy weapons," the sensor operator said slowly. "They're projectiles, physical ammunition." It sounded absurd. The galaxy had moved beyond kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They were inefficient, limited by ammunition, crude, but humanity had never stopped refining them. While other species chased more powerful energy weapons, humans perfected the art of throwing things very, very fast. The 7 human ships didn't fight in formation like the Council fleets. They moved like wolves, each ship supporting the others through tight beam communications. When one drew enemy fire, another flanked. When shields weakened, all 7 focused their fire. The Resolute drew a group of Marauders toward it, then the Defiant appeared on their flank. The Valiant launched missiles, not giant torpedoes but hundreds of small, smart warheads that separated and attacked from multiple angles, overwhelming point defenses. Lieutenant Tae Yang deployed chaff drones from the Indomitable, small objects that broadcast false sensor signatures. To the Marauders, it looked like each human ship had multiplied into dozens. Their targeting computers went crazy trying to track everything, but the Marauders weren't stupid. They had survived as raiders by being adaptable. Their commanders recognized the human ships as the real threat and redirected forces. 20 Marauder vessels converged on the Indomitable. Multiple contacts closing fast, Tae Yang reported. His voice was steady despite the odds. "Show them Earth's point defense," Day One said calmly. As the Marauders closed to firing range, the Indomitable's hull came alive. Dozens of automated turrets emerged. Rapid-fire rotary cannons that humans called CIWS. They didn't fire energy bolts. They fired depleted uranium rounds at thousands per minute. The space around the Indomitable became a storm of metal. Incoming missiles disintegrated. Enemy fighters were shredded. Marauder ships attempting to close for boarding actions found their hulls torn apart before they could get near. The few Marauders that survived, the approach found the human ship executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Sharp turns, rapid acceleration, sudden stops. The Indomitable moved like a fighter craft, not a warship. Humans had built their ships to handle higher G-forces than any alien crew could survive. Admiral Park watched from the Resolute as her fleet carved through the Marauder forces, but she knew this was just the opening act. "Time to end this. All vessels target priority Alpha," she ordered. "End this fight." The 7 human ships converged on the Marauder command vessel, a massive, ugly ship that had been coordinating the swarm attacks from a distance. It bristled with weapons and armor. Part 1. The Galactic Council's Pride. The Nexus station hung in space like a giant metal flower, its petals spreading around a dying neutron star. Inside the main council chamber, representatives from 40 different alien species gathered for an emergency meeting. Ambassador Ji-Woo Lee sat in the human section, a small chair in the back corner where the newest members always sat. She watched as the 3 most powerful military species in the galaxy prepared their presentation. The Varanthi were insect-like creatures, tall and covered in dark blue shells. Their leader, Vrexthal, clicked his mandibles as he activated the viewing screen. The Quallen looked like giant salamanders with smooth, wet skin that changed colors when they spoke. The Theron were reptilian warriors, covered in red scales and battle scars. The Marauder clans have attacked 12 colonies in the past month, Vrexthal announced. His voice sounded like gravel being crushed. They grow bolder. They must be stopped. The chamber filled with worried whispers. The Marauders were raiders who lived in old, broken ships. They attacked supply convoys and small outposts. Nobody thought they were a real threat until now. "We will show you our response," the Quallen representative said. His name was Mariloth, and his skin shifted from blue to purple as he spoke. "Behold our fleets." The viewing screen lit up with images of warships. The Varanthi showed their dreadnoughts first. Each ship stretched 3 kilometers from end to end. Their hulls were covered in weapon ports and glowing shield generators. Plasma cannons lined their sides like teeth in a massive jaw. "Each dreadnought carries enough firepower to glass a planet," Vrexthal said with obvious pride. "Our shields can withstand the radiation of a dying star. We have 50 of these vessels ready for deployment." The Quallen showed their stealth cruisers next. These ships were sleeker, more elegant. They shimmered on the screen like mirages. "Our vessels can phase through subspace," Mariloth explained. "We appear behind enemy lines, strike, and vanish before they can respond. We have 70 cruisers in our battle fleet." Finally, the Theron displayed their carriers. These ships were different, designed to hold thousands of small fighter craft inside their massive hangars. The Theron Dominion breeds warriors from birth. Their representative Krath growled. "Each carrier holds 3,000 fighters. Each fighter is piloted by a soldier who knows nothing but combat. We have 30 carriers standing ready." The display was impressive. The other species in the council murmured their approval. This was the might of the Galactic Council, the combined power of civilizations that had ruled space for thousands of years. Ambassador Jiwoo raised her hand. The chamber fell silent. Several species looked at her with what might have been amusement. "Earth would like to contribute to this defensive operation," she said calmly. The silence broke into clicking, hissing, and what sounded like laughter. Vrexthal's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Varanthi equivalent of a chuckle. "Honored Ambassador," he said, trying to sound polite. "Humanity has been among the stars for barely 15 years. Your largest vessels are the size of our cargo shuttles. What could you possibly offer?" Mariloth's skin shifted to a sympathetic yellow. "Perhaps humanity could handle supply runs. We would not want to see your people in actual combat. It would be a tragedy. Your ships are so small." Jiwoo felt her jaw tighten, but kept her face neutral. She had expected this. Humanity was new to the galactic community. Their ships were indeed smaller. But she knew something these ancient species had forgotten. "We simply request permission to observe," she said quietly. "We are new to galactic warfare. We could learn from your expertise." The council members looked at each other. This seemed harmless enough. "Let the humans watch from a safe distance. They might learn something useful." "Granted," Vrexthal said. "You may observe from the rear position. Do not engage the enemy. That is an order." "Understood," Jiwoo replied. Across the system, aboard the human vessel called the Indomitable, Captain Daewon Kim stood on his bridge watching the council meeting through a live feed. His ship was small by galactic standards, only 400 meters long, but every centimeter of it had been designed with purpose. Lieutenant Taeyang Choi stood at the weapons station. He was young, barely 25, but he had trained his entire life for void combat. "They think we're prey," Taeyang said quietly, watching the alien ships on the display. "Let them think that," Daewon replied. "Predators always get overconfident." A message came through on the secure channel. It was Admiral Hai-Jin Park, commander of humanity's small fleet. Her face appeared on the screen. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "All vessels, stand ready," she ordered. "When they see what we can do, everything changes, but we wait for the right moment." Daewon walked through his ship's corridors after the meeting ended. The Indomitable was nothing like the massive alien warships. There were no decorative panels or comfortable crew quarters. Every space served a function. The walls were lined with ammunition feeds and power conduits. The crew numbered only 200, but each person had trained for years. In the hangar, Pei Taeyang was running final checks on the weapon systems. The room was filled with missiles, each one smaller than the massive torpedoes the aliens used. But these missiles were different. They could think, adapt, and swarm like insects. "How many do we have loaded?" Daewon asked. 2,000, Taeyang replied. "Plus the railguns are fully charged. Point defense systems are online, and the special package is ready if we need it." Daewon nodded. The special package, the weapon that would make the galaxy take notice. "They see our ships and think we're weak," Taeyang continued. "They don't understand that we built these ships to fight, not to impress." "They've been in space for thousands of years," Daewon said. "They've forgotten what real war looks like. They have massive ships and powerful weapons, but they fight the same way they always have. They're predictable, and we're not," Taeyang finished. Daewon looked out at the stars through the hangar's atmospheric shield. Somewhere out there, the Marauders were waiting, and beyond them, the massive fleets of the Galactic Council were preparing for battle. The aliens thought this would be a simple police action. They would roll over the Marauders with their superior technology and overwhelming force. They had invited humanity to watch and learn how real military powers operated, but humanity had learned about war in a different school. On Earth, humans had fought each other for thousands of years. They had learned to win against superior numbers. They had learned to adapt, to innovate, to use every advantage. The Galactic Council was about to learn a lesson they had forgotten long ago. Size and power meant nothing without skill and tactics. Admiral Park's final message played again in Daewon's mind. "When the moment comes, show them why Earth survived. Show them why humanity never stopped preparing for war, even when we reached for the stars." The captain smiled grimly. The council wanted them to observe. They would observe. But when the time was right, they would do more than watch. They would show the galaxy what human warfare really meant. Part 5. They came to see our battleships, 3 months after the battle with the organic aliens. Captain Daewon stood in the newly constructed shipyard orbiting Mars. Through the observation window, he could see dozens of vessels under construction. Some were human designs. Others were joint projects with council species. All of them bore the lessons learned from recent battles. Ambassador Jiwoo joined him at the window. She looked different now, more confident. The council species no longer dismissed her when she spoke. "They wanted to see our battleships," she said quietly. "Now they want to build them with us. Are we ready for that responsibility?" Daewon asked. Jiwoo considered the question carefully. "I think we're as ready as we'll ever be. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting each other. We learned the worst of what we're capable of, but we also learned the best. Now we have a chance to use those lessons to protect others, not just ourselves." She pointed to a vessel taking shape in the construction cradle. "That's the Defiance, a joint design between human and Theran engineers. It combines their honor-bound warrior culture with our tactical flexibility." "Will it work?" Daewon asked. "It already is," Jiwoo replied. "The prototype performed better than either species expected. The Theran are proud people, but they're learning that pride and adaptation are not enemies." A message came through on Daewon's communicator. It was Admiral Park. "Captain, we have a situation. The Marauder clans are active again. They hit a mining colony on the Outer Rim last night. The Council is assembling a response fleet. They've requested human participation." "Requested or demanded?" Daewon asked. "Requested," Park confirmed. "Things have changed. They're asking for our help, not ordering us to observe." Daewon smiled slightly. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow. Meet me at the Terra's Wrath." The response fleet gathered at the edge of Council space. It was smaller than the force that had fought the Marauders 6 months ago, but it was more effective. 12 Council vessels supported by 8 human ships, including the Terra's Wrath. The fleet commander was Vrexthal. The Varanthi ambassador had requested the position personally. When asked why, he had simply said he wanted to see if he had learned anything. The fleet arrived at the mining colony to find it already under attack. 50 Marauder vessels swarmed the orbital stations, looting supplies and taking prisoners. Standard attack pattern? Frexthal asked Admiral Park. No, Park replied. New pattern? Combined arms approach. Use your dreadnoughts as anchor points. We'll provide mobile strike capability. Frexthal hesitated, then clicked his mandibles in agreement. Proceed. The battle was short and decisive. The Varanthi dreadnoughts advanced in a loose formation, not the rigid wall they had used before. When Marauders tried to exploit gaps, human ships were waiting. The Terra's Wrath demonstrated its capabilities fully for the first time. It moved like a ship 1/10 its size, shields deflecting attacks while its railguns systematically disabled enemy vessels. It did not try to destroy everything. It created openings for the smaller ships to exploit. Quallen cruisers phased in using coordinates provided by human sensor networks. They struck with precision, then disappeared before the Marauders could respond. The Marauders tried their old tricks: suicide runs, swarm attacks, electronic warfare. But the Council fleet had learned. They adapted in real time, changing tactics as the situation evolved. The Marauders found themselves fighting an enemy that thought like they did, but with better training and equipment. Within an hour, the Marauder fleet retreated. The mining colony was saved with minimal casualties. On the journey back to Nexus Station, Frexthal requested a private meeting with Admiral Park. They met in a conference room aboard the Terra's Wrath. We have come a long way in 6 months, Frexthal said. My species ruled this region of space for 2,000 years. We thought we knew everything about warfare. Then humanity arrived and proved us wrong. You aren't wrong, Park replied. Your tactics worked for 2,000 years. But the galaxy is changing. The threats are changing. What worked before isn't enough anymore. Frexthal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. There are members of the Council who fear humanity. They say you are too aggressive, too willing to use violence. They worry about what will happen when you build more ships like this one. Park looked out the window at the stars. There are humans who fear the Council too. They remember being dismissed and laughed at. They worry that once we're no longer useful, we'll be pushed aside again. What do you believe? Frexthal asked. I believe that fear is natural, Park said. But it's not useful. Humanity joined the Council because we wanted to be part of something larger than ourselves. We wanted to explore the galaxy, learn from other species, and contribute to galactic civilization. She turned to face him. We bring weapons and tactics because that's what we're good at. But we also bring medicine, art, philosophy, and 1,000 other things. War is part of who we are, but it's not all we are. Frexthal was silent for a long moment. I will share your words with the Council. Perhaps they will ease some fears. And perhaps they won't, Park said honestly. But that's fine. Trust is earned through actions, not words. We'll prove ourselves through what we do, not what we say. Back at the shipyard on Mars, construction continued. The Defiance was nearly complete. Beside it, 2 more joint design vessels were taking shape. One combined human and Quallen technology. Another merged Varanthi power systems with human weapons. Lieutenant Tae Yang had been promoted to commander and assigned to oversee the weapons systems on the Defiance. He walked through the ship with a team of Theron engineers, discussing firing solutions and tactical scenarios. Your people fight with honor, one of the Theron said, but you also fight with cunning. How do you balance these things? There is no dishonor in using your intelligence, Tae Yang replied. On Earth we have a saying, all's fair in love and war. It means that when survival is at stake, you use every advantage you have. But it doesn't mean you abandon your principles. The Theron considered this. Our people believe that a warrior's worth is measured in direct combat. To strike from hiding or to use tricks is cowardly. Is it cowardly to keep your people alive? Tae Yang asked. Is it cowardly to win the battle with fewer casualties? Honor is important, but so is effectiveness. The best warriors are those who achieve victory while protecting their comrades. The Theron was silent for a moment, then made a gesture of respect. You speak wisdom, human. Perhaps our definition of honor has been too narrow. Months turned into a year. The integrated fleets became normal. Human tactical officers served on ships throughout Council space. Council engineers learned human manufacturing techniques. Trade increased. Cultural exchange programs started, but not everyone was happy. A group of radical council members formed a coalition. They called themselves the Preservation Front. Their goal was simple: limit human expansion and prevent humanity from becoming too powerful. They argued that humanity was too young, too aggressive, too dangerous. They proposed restrictions on human military buildup. They wanted to cap the number of battleships humanity could construct. Ambassador Jiwoo faced them in the council chamber. "You fear us because we are different," she said. "Because we fight differently. Because we think differently." But the council was built on diversity. "Every species here has different strengths and different approaches. We do not fear difference," the leader of the Preservation Front replied. "We fear domination. Your species has gone from 7 small ships to dozens of warships in less than 2 years. At this rate, humanity will have the most powerful military and council space within a decade." "And if we do?" Jiwoo asked. "What then? Do you think we'll use it to conquer you? We joined the council to be part of it, not to rule it." "So you say now," the leader countered. "But power changes people. History shows that species with overwhelming military force eventually use it." Jiwoo looked around the chamber. "History also shows that species without adequate defense get conquered. The marauders are still out there. The organic aliens we fought are still a threat, and there are other dangers we haven't encountered yet." She activated a display showing star charts. "The galaxy is vast. We've explored less than 1% of it. Who knows what else is waiting out there? The council needs strong defenses, and humanity is willing to help provide them." The vote on the proposed restrictions failed. Barely, but it failed. The council decided to trust humanity, at least for now, but the division remained. Some species embraced human innovation. Others watched warily, waiting for humanity to reveal what they believed was its true nature. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge of the Indomitable 1 year after the first battle with the Marauders. His ship had been refitted with new systems combining the best of human and council technology. Admiral Park's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain, we have new orders. The council is sending an expedition to the Andromeda Relay. It's a 3-month journey to unexplored space. They want humans on the expedition fleet." "How many ships?" Daewon asked. 30. 10 human, 20 council. Mixed crews on some vessels. This will be the first true joint expedition." Daewon smiled. "When do we leave?" 2 weeks. The Terra's Wrath will serve as the flagship. I want you and the Indomitable on point. You've proven yourself good at handling the unexpected.